Welcome to Disaster Party Podcast. As always, this is Rob Cedeno, joined by my co-host.
Oh, daddy. It's your boy Andy Vivians. It's Vivian. And that's for I am the one true daddy of Vivian's INC and your American icon. Ooh, daddy, I'm excited.
And today, this isn't our typical weekly episode. This is our fourth episode of Know Thy Neighbor, which for those who don't know, if this is your first Know Thy Neighbor episode, Know Thy Neighbor is when we interview a friend of ours or someone that we don't know, and we ask them more intimate personal questions so that they can share their story. Because at the end of the day, we interact with people on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, and we don't know them on a deeper level. Like we might know like they like wrestling or they like baseball and where they work and if they have brothers or sisters, maybe. And then anything outside of that, we don't really know because most of us don't sit there and have these intimate conversations. So this conversation, the Know Thy Neighbor little, I guess, what do you want to call it, series, is to get to know people on a deeper level, for us to get to know them and for the listeners to get to know them. And hopefully their story will inspire or have people relate to them or anything like that. So we are actually bringing back on J Rag. He was on a couple weeks ago. This would be his third episode coming on. The other two episodes we're talking about wrestling. No, one was wrestling and one was DoorDash and Grubhub, and that was Dash in the Fast Lane. So today, Jason volunteered for Know Thy Neighbor. Jason, are you ready for this?
I'm ready. And hello, thank you for having me. I'm Jason. Call me J Ragan, probably preferably. But I'm happy to be here. Thanks for bringing me back, guys.
You're welcome. You are
Thank
welcome.
you for coming.
Let's see if you're
I'm
thanking
excited.
us after this is over.
He's like,
Bring it on.
Look what you guys made me do. So, the way I see it, you just moved in the neighborhood. Me and Rob got some pies, and we're about to figure out who you are.
All right.
So, I got a question for you. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Are you happy?
You said, are you ready? Sorry,
Are
I
you
had
ready?
to do I was doing the
I
DX
felt
thing.
it too.
My
I
bad.
felt it too.
My bad. All right, go ahead, Andy. Sorry.
Biggest question of all. Are you happy?
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty happy. Got a lot going on. I'm in a better place than I was a couple of years ago. So yeah, I'd say overall, yeah, I'm pretty happy.
Okay.
Follow up. What makes you so happy?
Oh, what makes me so happy? Well, I've got a pretty steady job. Besides, doing my deliveries as we covered on the last time I was here. I also have a steady job working in accounts receivable, something that I enjoy doing. I've done it for the last few years. I'm in a much better situation than I was a few years ago. A few years ago, I was primarily in a bad financial situation. My fault, because I spend money like you wouldn't believe on the most nonsense things, and I've turned a lot of that around. So really got my credit score back up. Was able to get a new car a couple of years ago, and I know it sounds like material things, but I think I've become more comfortable rather than I was a few years ago. I was granted, besides being in a bad financial situation, I was very conflicted in how I was going about situations. And I feel like between then and now, I've come a long way to really learn more about myself and really learn how to address certain things and handle certain things in life. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um,
Well, I was going to follow up on that.
go for it.
What lessons did you learn?
One of the biggest lessons I would say I learned is that number one is you can't win them all. You're never, life's always going to throw you curveballs, as I'm sure a lot of people have learned throughout the pandemic in one way, shape, or another. Um, Life is always unexpected, really. And, you really get one shot in this world to really make what you want or what you're going to end up making of this life. Um, and I've grown to be more humble on when things are really beyond your control. I used to think that I was in control of every situation I was in, or at least had a hand. And it's not always the case. You really, I guess over time, you really take a step back sometimes and really learn about yourself and really learn about what's going on around you, really learn to appreciate those around you. um because people around you are trying to help, whether you realize it or not. So I would say humility is probably one of the biggest things I've learned in the last few years.
Okay. Was like asking for help like a big like issue? Because I know like a lot of people want to kind of take on the world by themselves, and it's easier to take on everything with a group of friends around you.
Yeah,
Um, would you say like trying to reach out was like one of the big hurdles?
it was, because I'm very prideful, to a fault, to the point where it can be a flaw. um no, that's why pride is also one of the big seven sins. um where I wouldn't like asking for help. And you know I guess there was a time in my life where I would try to cut corners, take the easy way out. And honestly, the more times than I care to admit, in certain situations, when you try to cut corners or take the easy way out, you don't get as far as you had hoped. um so I think, and that's also easier how you find yourself trapped, because you'll cut a corner, take a wrong turn, not realize it, and then you're stuck. um and I think the biggest way to avoid that is going back to what I was saying, is really being humble about situations you're in, really being humble about those around you who truly care and really want to help, and also being open to said help. And you gotta sometimes you can't be you gotta let go of that pride at some point to really ask to reach out, because not everything is just going to be given to you on a silver platter. um and that was a big lesson that my parents always tried to instill in me for a long time, and I was just very hard-headed. Like, yeah, it's like not everything revolves around you, Jason. And that's definitely one of the biggest lessons that I was always just thick-headed to. And I think I've come a long way in really accepting that.
All right. Are you ready for the
All right.
the more personal questions now?
Let's go.
We warm
Andy,
you up.
I think that was a good warm up.
That was.
I think you had a question in mind, Andy.
Oh, so let's get to like family and stuff.
Mhm.
What was actually I'm gonna switch it up. You said that your parents had a hand in helping you out with that. Did you find one parent more influential than the other to you, or
No, I wouldn't say more influential. I would say each of my parents were influential in each their own way. Um, Also, obviously, together too. They wanted me to really be able to learn the same lessons of life. Um, but you know, I would say there were times I may have learned a different lesson from each parent, but I would say for the most part I learned the same lessons from them together.
Okay.
Obviously have always been really supportive of me, and there have been times where I've been a pain in the ass through school. Uh, Bad grades, cutting school, doing things I'm not supposed to be doing.
We know
Lying to
nothing
get
about that.
I still do that.
lying to get
Fact, though.
over. Oh God, there were times in my life I was a pathological liar, and I wasn't a good one, but I always kept going back to that well. Even though that well might dried years ago, I kept going back to it, and and it always created, you know, I guess you could say, oh, kids being kids, but it comes a time where you got to really start to grow up, and obviously, took me a little longer than it should have. Um, so at times my antics might have created stressful situations, and it wasn't great, and I do live now really learning from my past mistakes. Um, it really shapes you into what you become now and moving forward. As since we're all grown adults now, it's like, we may not be doing what we thought to ourselves as kids that we would be doing by this time. But I think the most important thing that a lot of people don't realize is that even though you might be doing something different now than what you thought you would have been doing, the lessons that you're learning now are, for the most part, lessons that your parents and your friends and your other loved ones have always been trying to really instill in you to really become, a decent person, a good human being, and, a positive contributor to society one way or another.
All right, I got one.
Mhm.
I want to hear because this one when Andy did this to me, this one was a good one for me. What was, or if the most impactful memory you have as a child?
Impactful memory.
Yeah, it could be impacting good, bad, in between, or whatever. But do you have a memory that you can always like go back to and be like, wow, when I was like 7, I remember blah, blank, blank, blank happening, and that affected my life?
One of the most impactful memories was one of them. I'll talk on this one. When I got caught stealing money from my aunt, and my aunt who lived right downstairs. And I had gotten caught, and even I'm caught red-handed with the money in my possession in my room, and I still tried lying about it. I ended up, really, at least for a night, I got kicked out of the house. My parents were obviously very upset, and obviously rightfully so. My aunt was hurt, because family wasn't perfect, but they always cared. And for me to do that, this happened when I was like 17 already. So it was like I'm already like towards the end of high school, coming into an adult. So this is not really something at this age I should be doing. And obviously I was at the age where I know better. And that was definitely a time where I really hurt the people that loved me the most. And that definitely, like, even though it was just like I got kicked out for one night, and the next day we really got together with my parents and my aunt and my uncle, and we really had like a heart to heart. It was it was definitely a lesson I learned right then and there, because and I would say that sticks with me, because it sticks with me because one, I not only did I learn a lesson, but it's also something that I look back and I'm like, I can't believe I did that, Yeah, and it's just like, it was one of those things that if I needed money, I could have just asked, like, hey, mom, dad, or my aunt, can I, borrow whatever for whatever, and they more than like would have said yes, and it was just me being an asshole, really. Sorry if I'm not allowed to say
Yeah.
that.
No, you can say
Okay.
whatever
You
you
can
want.
say
man.
whatever you want.
Yeah, me pretty much being a fucking asshole. But on top of that, really hurting them because as pissed off as they were really hurt. And knowing that I did cause that, it caused you know, wasn't unfortunately wasn't the last mistake I would end up making, but it was definitely one I really think back to.
And that was about half of your life ago. So that must be really impactful.
Literally, yes, because I'm 34 now. So yes, literally half because I was 17
Yeah.
when that happened.
So yeah, that
Oh, wow.
definitely
Yeah.
if you're still talking about something with such passion and like, regret, that means that really did impact you a lot. So
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. All right, ready for another one?
bring it.
All right. I know Andy and I had a very similar answer to this one.
Mhm.
What was, and again, share as little as or as much as you want on this. What was either the worst, most difficult, or hardest moment of your life?
The hardest, most difficult, or most impactful?
Or no, hardest, worst, most difficult, or hardest? Worst, difficult, or hard? We got an easy one after this, okay? So
Okay. No, but this one, I already know the answer to this one. I'm just trying to. I would say it was probably the day my ex-girlfriend and I broke up. So pretty much it was a toxic relationship. She had her flaws, I had mine. But I think for me, and this kind of goes hand in hand with one of the biggest regrets of my life. Granted, she had her flaws, and I did too, but I had anger issues, and it's look, and these issues were just, and it like I'm the type where I let things bottle up. I don't talk about my emotions a whole lot, and and my mom's even called me out on it. Like, you can't let things bottle up. Even to this day, she tells me, you can't let things bottle up. If you feel in a certain way, you got to talk about it. I'm just hard-headed in that sense.
that was one of the
Or,
reasons
I
for this
agree.
series.
So in this relationship, we were arguing a lot. And I really developed anger issues. I had trust issues, but it got to a point where like became a completely different person. Where, and this answer might run long, so I'll just letting you know ahead of time. You're in for a
Sure,
ride
man.
here. But it got to a point where I completely changed as a person, where I was not I wouldn't even recognize myself. Honestly, with the person I was, I would start arguments for no reason. I would say horrible, terrible things to her. I would, unfortunately, and what I'm about to say is a very strong word to use. I was, for the most part, emotionally and mentally abusive to her. And and that's not, obviously that's not something I was raised to be. And it's not something like I didn't witness that in my home or anything like that. So I had anger issues, and it really, it like I didn't even, I was a completely different person, and it really got to a point where she ended up leaving me. And at the time, I didn't understand it. I was still full of emotion and anger because of how our relationship was going. And then all of a sudden, she just left. And it wasn't just like she just sent me like a breakup text. She moved. She moved out of state. I didn't even know.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't know until she was already gone. And then I got out of work. I was working, I think, Bath and Body Works at the time. And I turned my phone on after I logged out because we're not allowed to have our phones on us. And I remember I turned my phone back on, and all of a sudden my phone starts blowing up with text after text after text from her. And I'm thinking, and like I remember trying to reach her throughout the day because, and it was going straight to voicemail, and I thought it was weird. So I get text after text. So I'm thinking something happened. I start reading the text telling me she's basically pouring her heart out to me, telling me, that she's sorry that this didn't work out. She was pretty much breaking up with me and telling me that she had, she was leaving. And that moment I felt like, because I loved her and I cared about her so much, even though I was doing shit to show it. I'm being a freaking asshole at this point. Someone could say I was a real piece of shit. And I'll admit that I was at the time. I was a real piece of shit. And it felt like a gut punch like you wouldn't believe. So I remember crying my eyes out, not knowing how to process this, because again, I'm in this ball of emotion that I have no familiarity with whatsoever. My anger issues are out of control, and I, so I start calling her, blowing up her phone. Long story short, I once I got her on the phone, I insulted her more, and it just like it. Long story short, it really took me a really long time to really come to terms with I was the reason that our relationship fell apart. No matter what flaws she had, no matter what mistakes she made, mistakes I made, that was completely irrelevant because it does not justify the things I was doing, the hurt I was putting her through, and it really took me a really long time to really accept what I was doing. I became depressed after that. And again, I'm already a bottled up person as it is. I got bottled up even more. I thought about fucking ending it. One time I tried, and I thank God I chickened out. And it really, and it, like, it really, it took me really years to really get over it. Yeah, I know she's moved on, that sort of thing. Like, I accepted that the relationship was over, but it really took me years to really come to terms with the fact that I'm the one who did that damage. Because it's one thing to live with regret, but when you are living with regret that's caused by your own guilt, that's a whole nother thing. And that is not something that I wish on anyone, not even my worst enemy. And obviously I've learned that I've used that to really learn now, to really become a better person, to really promise that, no matter what the situation, whether it be relationship, friendship, whatever, family, or whatever the case may be, any interaction, that I would never be that person I was ever again. I'm not even person. I would never be that monster that I was back then, because back then, and the thing is, it's not like I was out of control. Like, anytime my parents would come by here, I was able to put on this facade that, everything's good, but then when it just became between me and her, behind closed doors, the beast was unleashed. And yeah, so, and I think that was probably the biggest lesson of being able to become humble with knowing and accepting your own actions, and I'll admit I still live with that guilt to this day, and part of me finds it hard to really forgive myself because that's not something I should have ever done in the first place. Some can make the excuses, oh, well, I grew up with that in my house. Well, I didn't grow up with that. Not like what I was doing, So I have no excuse. I have no justification. Everyone has their flaws, and but I do feel better knowing that I'm never going to make that mistake ever again. So I would say that was a huge impact, and honestly, that's a lesson I continue to learn to this day, because I think about it all the time. The mistakes you make. You can't forget your past, because one way or another, good or bad, your past is what helps you shape what you've become, and really has to be weighed into the decision of what you want to be moving forward. So that was a big lesson. That was a huge impact in my life.
Oh,
Yeah.
It was a lot, man. But it was, I mean,
Yeah.
before we go to the easier question,
Mhm.
I would say at least the fact that you are able to acknowledge, the behavior, and you
Yeah.
are still kind of beating yourself up about it and learning and changing. So that's really good. I mean, unfortunate for the time, but good that you've learned from it.
Yeah.
All right, Andy.
I
Easy
have-
question.
I have an easy question, but I also have. No, we'll go with the easy one. What is your happiest moment?
Happiest moment? I mean, it's hard to pick one. Happiest moment.
So something like you just
Uh.
had that you're still like kind of beating yourself up over. Do you have a moment that
Mhm.
you can always look back and just like when you think about it in your head, there's just like a giant smile that every time you think of that memory or that moment, it just, you always smile, and that smile never fades.
Oh, I would have to say the first time me and my parents went to Universal, Studios.
Okay.
Because I want to say it was like maybe 7 or 8 at the time. Because I remember we all remember watching Nickelodeon shows and Cartoon Network and all that. And if you ever watch Nickelodeon in particular, every live show, you would say, like all that, Kenan and Kel, any other shows, most of them always ended. Oh, this episode was recorded in front of a live studio audience at Nickelodeon Studios.
Oh yeah,
in Orlando, Florida.
And
I remember my mom just one night asking me after school, so we're booking a vacation. Where do you want to go? I said instantly, I said Universal Studios.
Nice.
Because that's
make it happen.
They made it happen.
Did anything at Universal Studios that trip, do you remember extra? Because I remember my parents took me like Disney and all those places when I was young. And I go, okay, I can remember being there. But there wasn't any like particular thing that I could be like, oh, well, I was there that time.
Oh, yes. This vacation, I don't know if it was this happened the first time we went, because that was the first time we went, but we ended up going there. I think we went there like almost every year after that.
Wow.
One of the other times we went, though, that I can remember that me and my parents laugh at all the time. This particular year, we went with me and my parents, my aunt, my uncle, and the week before we had left on that vacation, I had just watched Beavis and Butthead Do America for the first time.
Wow.
So that whole week, we're going to the theme parks of Disney World, Epcot, Universal. I got my shirt above my head doing "I Am the Great Cornholio" all day, every day. And I'm yelling it at the top of my lungs. We go inside, we're inside for like Space Mountain. The lines are looping, we're on this line, and then you got the other line going back this way. I got the shirt as we're online. I'm turning to the people the line next to us, screaming at them. I'm Cornholio. As we're walking outside, my dad's like, holding everybody back a little, let them walk a little further up.
That's funny.
And then I turn around and I start yelling at them. And my dad's like, I just remember my dad just face palming hard.
That's funny.
But it was hilarious. Oh God, it was
That's
hilarious.
That's funny.
So, all right, next one. So we're kind of going back and forth with good and bad. What is your biggest fear?
My biggest fear? My biggest fear would have to be, as unfortunately as inevitable as is, it would be losing a loved one. Whether it be expected or suddenly. Because again, especially in later years, I've really grown to really appreciate family more than I used to. Because obviously no family's perfect. Everyone has their flaws and and shit. But I've really grown again in these last few years, definitely, to really appreciate family. And my biggest fear is losing any one of them. As unfortunately as inevitable as it is, in this thing we call life. So
Yeah,
I would say,
Yeah.
All right.
All right. The next one. What's the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received?
Yeah.
The best advice I ever received. I'd say because I've received a whole lot of good advice over the years from different people. But one lesson that really sticks out of me actually comes from my old Taekwondo teacher. And again, this was during the time where I'm a knucklehead doing teenager things. And while I was going to Taekwondo, some little side note here, anytime I got in trouble while I was enrolled in Taekwondo, sometimes my parents would let my Taekwondo teacher, because then after class, and my class was always like the last one of the night on whichever days I was going, he'd always pull me to the side and really have like a one-on-one heart-to-heart conversation with me. And one of the best lessons he ever said, and it how true is, because a teenager may not understand this at the time, because they're still learning and going through the motions, growing up really. Until you really know yourself, truly know yourself, you'll never, ever, ever, no matter how hard you think, know what you're doing.
Facts.
And I'd say that is definitely something that really is to this day ingrained in my head.
There you go.
Okay.
And again, at the time, I didn't really understand it because even after he said that, I still did knucklehead things. But now really understanding what he meant.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. This one you could take in any way you want. Okay. I can give you some examples if you'd like, and if you don't have any, you don't have any. Talk about your experience in a world event. So examples would be like, do you remember the day of like 9/11 where you were? Or like these are just examples. So you could pick one. Either like the 2008 recession, did that affect you, or do you remember anything of that? Or even the pandemic, or anything like that.
2008 recession, I vaguely honestly remember that. 9/11, I definitely remember, like literally like it just happened yesterday still. I was actually because this happened just after the school year started, because it was
September.
second or third week in September. It was my freshman year of high school, and I remember we're in gym class. We haven't started playing any sports yet because kids had to get their physicals and get cleared by the nurse and doctors and all that. So we were at a time where all the students they're spending the whole period just sitting on the bleachers, just doing whatever. And all of a sudden, I just hear about 2 planes hitting the towers, and I'm like, "Wait, what?" I'm thinking like, I think the first thing I thought was there were 2 jets that hit the towers, and I'm thinking like I'm thinking for some reason, because I heard jets, I'm thinking like a fighter jet ran into one of the towers, and I'm thinking it's an accident. And then it wasn't really until like later in the school day I really heard what happened, and we're like, holy crap! My aunt at the time worked right across the street from, like, literally across the street from one of the towers, like One Liberty Plaza. So I just remember, and at the end of the school day, when we're on the school bus going home, I went to Saunders High School. During the bus routes, at one point of the bus route, because Yonkers has a lot of hills on it, you can see the New York City skyline in the distance.
Wow.
At one point on this bus route. So remember, and me and everyone else on the bus, we just see all the smoke, and because it's still like 3:00 in the afternoon. So, and we're like, what the? I go, I get home. My parents are already home, and we're like, what? Like, what's going on? The news is on. We're really trying to come to terms with what the hell was going on. My aunt made it home, thankfully, because she had a close call. She ended up being able to catch a cab somehow. Like, I guess the grace of God or whatever other divine intervention of some sort. She managed to catch a cab. The second that cab was pulling away, the tower started coming down, and there was debris falling literally on the spot where she was just standing a few minutes prior. Because the driver, and I remember my aunt telling me that when she was in the back of the cab, the driver looked in his rearview mirror and he sees all the debris falling now. And it's like, if she had been there like another couple minutes, probably, God knows, I would have been dead. My dad at the time worked in Stamford, Connecticut, for a company called W&M Properties, which at the time was also the building that I believe they owned, but they did also manage the Empire State Building. So my dad was in Stamford, but even they went to the roof of their building, and even from Stamford, Connecticut, you could still see all the smoke.
Wow.
And because you could also see the tops of the skyscrapers. And he told me that he remembers his boss. He remembers this to this day. His boss telling him, "We need to evacuate the Empire State Building now," because the Twin Towers were just hit. Obviously they had gotten word that it was a terrorist attack. The next biggest building was, Empire State Building. And I just remember, like, what the f is going on? And then, obviously here, and then more news comes out about the Pentagon, and then the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania. So yeah, that was definitely just and the fact that it's been like over 20 years already, just it's surreal.
Yeah, it's still pretty wild to think.
Yeah, I can tell you what spot in the bleachers I was sitting in. That's how hard in my head it is.
That's why we thought that was an important question, because it's like something like that you do remember exactly where you were. Yeah. All right, Andy.
So let's look into the future a little bit. Where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 15 years, or retirement?
Retirement. That's a question my mom asked me still these days. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I might still be with the company I'm with now. I've been working for this company for 7 years now. Holy shit, time flies. I don't know, honestly.
Well, do you have like? Oh no, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm not trying to say I have a lot going on now that, obviously somebody always wants to have goals. I'm just hoping I'm able to start a family at some point. That's obvious. That's obviously what I want to do. I want to be living comfortably, want to be, raising a family. I know I'm 34 years old, and a lot of my friends I went to school with already have kids already in school, but
hey, I'm your age and my kid's only 2, so don't worry about that.
Timing's different for everyone, so
Exactly.
we'll see.
Trust me, I know that feeling. I have people waiting in school lines. But
all right. Oh, go ahead, Andy.
I was gonna say with that one, like, is there any like goal you're trying to work on, or
anything specific? Not at the moment, and hopefully that doesn't sound bad, because obviously career goals, have always been a big thing. Our friend Ariel has always talked to me about, planning for the future.
Dude, this is your answer. There's no wrong answers.
Yeah, true. But it's definitely something that I do have to give more thought to. And admittedly, I haven't given the specifics of it more thought as much as I should. So yeah.
Okay.
That's what I got for now.
All right.
There you go.
I think this next question Andy added, and I don't really know how to word this, so I'm going to try my best. If you do this, okay, because I know I don't do this, but the question is, who do you sometimes compare yourself to? And if you do that, why? See, so I didn't write this question in there, so I think Andy might have. Okay. And if I'm wording that wrong, Andy, if you want to elaborate on that question.
So like a lot of times, like we have goals or stuff that we want to hit, or we see, especially with social media now being as big, we scroll through social media and we see everybody got the big lavish cars or all the hot women hanging around. Whoa, daddy. But like sometimes we compare ourselves to our friends or to somebody that we see. So is there anyone that like you kind of compare yourself to, someone that like maybe you want to either follow in their footsteps, so to speak, like they're like a motivator for you, or some place where they are where you want to be,
and then why, right?
Yeah, and why?
Well, okay, I definitely do understand the question. In terms of really following in specifically in their footsteps, I don't have anyone specifically in mind to that extreme. Only because I feel like I'm at a point where, like I just said, like I really haven't been giving my future as much thought as I really should. So I'm still kind of like carving my own path mode.
Okay.
Obviously I've had idols that I've looked up to, Derek Jeter was my idol growing up. Mark Messier, Shawn Michaels was definitely someone who I idolized. I want to follow his footsteps,
Yeah, he made a lot of money.
But he also made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
Still made a lot of money though.
Yeah. But in terms of, I don't have anyone specifically in mind for like a career path, because I'm still trying to work that out myself, and again kind of carving my own path. Now, anyone I would really compare myself, can that include a fictional character? As crazy as
Sure.
this,
Yeah.
Sure.
It's your answer,
anybody?
bro. There's no
I-
wrong answer.
I would say for someone in terms of just living their life, just in the general aspect, I would say any Dragon Ball fans out there, Vegeta, because because he's my favorite character in that series. He's had, in my opinion, one of the best character developments, but also like his journey of, just being, I don't want to say tunnel vision, but just wanting just like one thing. I guess, okay, you know what? Being tunnel vision, the way he was introduced to the series, and he's had his like redemption arc, even though he's still a prick.
He's a lovable prick.
He's a lovable prick now, and there have definitely been times that he's definitely been humbled as well. Example, when he was facing Majin Buu and he sacrificed himself, he had his redemption moment right there. And it really makes you think about his journey of how he's evolved. And as much as he strives to want to really be the best, but he's not going about it using the same antics and tactics as he was when we first met him. Now he's fighting for others, protecting those that he loves. He may not admit that he loves them, we all know he does. It really just trying to be the strongest, but also trying to be the best that he can. And that's why, that's the general path I kind of, idolize.
Okay.
It's funny, people make fun of like fictional characters and stuff, but like they have some real gems in there,
Yeah.
to model.
And also Vegeta makes me feel better about my hairline.
Word. Well, it looks like we only have maybe 5 more.
Okay.
So how about this one? If you have one, again, don't feel bad if you don't. What is your unbreakable dream? Something that you want to achieve in life that is 100% no matter what. I guess you can, if you want to reword it.
Unbreakable dream. I'm not too sure, honestly.
I mean, it's all good if you don't have an answer.
Yeah,
We can move on.
yeah, honestly, the biggest goal I really have it now is one day, have family, have kids that I can raise and, really teach them from lessons I've learned along the way to really be the best person they can be. And then maybe I would say it's that, honestly.
Okay.
Being able to really develop and pass on the kind of like a legacy of some sort.
Okay.
All right. So, this one is more fun.
Okay.
This one, when we first came up with it, I didn't really have an answer. I now have an answer from the other night, but it ain't about me, it's about you.
I had a couple answers if we're thinking about the same question.
Okay. I am going to want to know your answers after I give you mine.
Oh, no, you can listen back to my episode to get my answers.
Okay.
I have a completely new one, but that shit was wild. That's so wild.
We'll talk about that.
What have you ever had any like supernatural experiences?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
The most vivid one I remember, so one of my best friend's mom is kind of like a medium, and years ago we used to do like seances and stuff, and some of my friends don't really mess with it or believe in it. That's fine. I remember this one night in particular, many, many years ago. It was like in the middle of the night on the weekend, and we had kind of like doing a seance. And we were in the living room. We were sitting on the floor in the living room, and me and one of my best friends had her son kind of had like a blanket, covering over us. And we're sitting, and me and him and like I'm sitting like this, and he's sitting kind of like adjacent where he's sitting here but facing that way, because we had the walkway in between us, and we had like a big blanket covering ourselves. We're sitting Indian style because we're kind of cold. All of a sudden, we just felt a pull from between us, pull on the blanket, like a big pull, and we just started freaking out. We just started freaking. There was, again, I'm sitting here, he's sitting adjacent from me. Okay, there's no one in between us, but the pull was pulled like from behind us in between, and nobody's there. And it would just got yanked, and there were like 3 other people. We're like, what everyone saw it. We're like, okay, we kind of need to stop this thing. Yeah.
That's wild.
That's like more scary than like the shit that I talked about.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That by far was probably the biggest experience I've ever had. But
Okay.
that's kind of why I don't want to ever mess with a Ouija board.
Nah, no.
I've never
Listen.
messed with one because I was like, nope, not doing it. Not doing
You
it.
ever seen the ones they sell at like Toys R Us? They're did
huge,
back
right?
in the day? Yeah, and it's like, for kids, a Ouija board. I'm like, I don't know if that's a good idea.
I've had dreams that felt real.
Oh, I've had those.
I've had those.
But I couldn't tell if it was real or not.
I've had dreams that felt so real, and then when you wake up, you felt like you just fell into your bed from like 200 feet in the air.
I had one of those like, this feels real but wasn't real, like the other night, and then I woke up and I slapped Taylor. I was like, oh, okay, you're real. And she's like, why'd you hit me? I'm like, my bad. Thought you were a demon. I'm just kidding. I didn't say that. I would have gotten slapped. All right. So we got 2 more.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I feel like you might have answered, but you might have not. So I'm going to ask it. And if it's the same answer, just say same answer. And if it's a different answer, then go for it.
Got it.
Because I've had I know when I answered this question, I went into this like rabbit hole of how 1, 2, 3, 4, how it all led in. Okay. So do you have a single decision, or like what decision have you made that you can literally look back at and go, this one decision changed the complete directory, like the direction of my life? And you can literally pin to it and go, by doing this, it led to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to that ex I was talking about before, the way me and her had met was we still had MySpace back in the day. That's how long ago me and her met. And the thing is, like, we were on each other's friends list because we both lived in Yonkers, but we had actually never met in person. And I remember just seeing her online and just sending her a message and saying, hey. She said, hey, back. We started talking, and the rest is history. But just for that one moment, I'm just sitting randomly on the computer, and I just see her, and I say, hey, and we got to know each other, and then, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right, Andy. Last question.
The last one. And I love asking this question. What advice would you give your younger self? And why would you give your younger self that specific piece of advice?
What I would give my younger self. That's actually a fair. That's a very good question. Um, one I would really give myself is the exact same one my Taekwondo teacher told me. Until you really know yourself, you don't know what you're doing. Because again, back then, I was at a point in my life where I was a completely different person. I was like I didn't have the control that I thought I did. Didn't realize it. So that's definitely one of the pieces of advice I would really give that person. Give my younger self. Also about not being bottled up, because being bottled up contributed to a lot of the problems that I had caused back then. Um, and really understand being humble and really understand how to really address certain situations where one solution, as it may not seem practical or it may not seem like the one you really want to do, may be for the better.
Okay.
Because had I handled situations back then better, the trajectory of the rest of my life could have been completely different. So those are definitely a couple of lessons I would definitely give my younger self, and I'm sure there's probably a plethora more.
Okay.
That's good.
All right.
So was it as easy or difficult as we teased it to be?
I wouldn't say it was difficult. Probably a little bit more in depth than I expected, but that's fine. No problem with that. But yeah, I didn't find it difficult.
This is where we get to know you, get to know
That's
your
true.
story. And it's
That's
crazy
true.
because I've known you for a couple of years now, and I didn't even know some stuff about your story and your background. It's very motivating to hear that, and I know a lot of other
Yeah.
people are gonna, find connections with it that to help themselves too. So thank you for sharing that.
No problem. It's again kind of me being that bottled in person. I'm still that to this day, and sometimes. So as you guys saw.
But I think the best thing about your whole story is that even though you've made mistakes, you're still growing, you're still
Yeah.
learning. And a big thing about I know people, and I will admit sometimes I have trouble admitting, even though like I know I made a mistake, I have trouble admitting it, or like openly admitting it. So the fact that you have made the mistakes and you're openly admitting about it, and you're openly like, I've grown from it, I've changed from it, from this and this, like that's super honorable. So yeah, I mean, I appreciate you telling the story.
No problem. Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys having me come on here and really end up really shared more of my story than even I expect. But hey,
Yeah.
no regrets, no problems.
Did it feel good to like release some of it?
Yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It really felt good to really have that social setting to really let you guys in to really see what's on another layer of J-Rag.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome.
I dig it. I dig it.
Well, Jay Reagan, I think I'm having people over on Saturday for WrestleMania, not Sunday, just Saturday. So if you want to swing in,
This night one.
just night one.
Mania.
I'll let you know by tomorrow.
All right. Well, I'm gonna say thank you, J Rag, again for coming on to Know Thy Neighbor episode 4. It takes some balls to step up for this challenge, and you stepped up, my friend.
Thank you.
So for the Disaster Party podcast series, Know Thy Neighbor, this is Rob Zedaniel.
Oh, daddy. It's Andy Vivians.
And we are out. Bye.